Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to another episode of eDiscovery After Hours. My guest today is Kelly Twigger from ESI Attorneys and eDiscovery Assistant. We had a great conversation touching on everything from prioritizing date nights or weekends away with your spouse to the entrepreneurship that runs in her family. The fact that she left big law to start her own law firm and then out of her own law firm spun out a piece of software isn't all that surprising given that she has entrepreneurship through her siblings, her mom, all over the family. And then I was so touched and humbled and grateful that she was willing to talk about the cancer that she's been fighting for the last 8 months. It takes a lot to be that vulnerable and that personal on a public forum. And I was just so grateful that she took the time to do that. So this was a really special episode, and I hope you enjoy it very much. The sponsor this week is Discovery Master. When you are managing document review projects in Relativity, whether that data is on-prem in Rel 1, hosted by any number of different channel partners or in different instances across the world, if you want one login to see all of those projects, check out www.discoverymaster.co. Thanks for tuning in.
Quick time!
You don't know how to drink, your whole generation.
Drinks on the house.
Yes, sir.
No, wait a second. Drinks are 50% off.
Right.
No, wait a second. Double the price of everything.
And I work only 16 hours a day.
A union man only works 8 hours a day.
I belong to 2 unions.
And now, eDiscovery After Hours with your host, Ryan Short.
All right, Kelly, welcome to eDiscovery After Hours. Cheers.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for having me.
What are we sipping on this evening?
I'm having a little grape seltzer water.
Yeah, likewise. In fact, we were just discussing the inimitable Michael Bublé.
I know. I'm not as high end as you are, but I like the water. Looks it's not as bubbly as some.
Nobody's ever called me high end, but I have been called bubbly. So.
Well, let me be the first, right?
Oh, man. So, Kelly, I am thrilled to be able to meet you. We've traded notes on LinkedIn or via email for a couple of months, but have never actually spoken except for like the 60 seconds off camera prior to this. So I just want to have you confirm a couple of my impressions, right? And then we're going to get into something. So, all right, you were a competitive basketball player. Did you play in college?
I did. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you left big law to start your own legal practice.
Yep.
And then you built a piece of software to use yourself.
Yep.
And then you turned that piece of software you developed for yourself into a SaaS company that is now licensed to companies and law firms across the country, if not the globe. All
of that is correct.
Why do you insist on taking the easy road in life?
I don't know. It's a special gift. I don't know. Yeah. I recently started a new real estate business with some friends, and my daughter's reaction was, "Really, Mom? You need a third business?" I was like, well, I got 3 kids, 3 businesses. Yeah. Good. You got to keep it all in balance, right? That's right. That's right. I help these guys. They have a litigation group, eDiscovery services and consulting firm, and a piece of software. And I joke with them. I have like 5 full-time jobs, and I do them all like a solid B-. It's just very. It's just. It does. You know what I have to say is it's all about the team. So yeah. I have an incredible team of people behind me, and they are awesome at their jobs, and I don't have to micromanage them. And that's what makes it all possible. And remarkably, I have also raised fairly independent children. Go figure. So, and my daughter is already an entrepreneur in her own right. She already has her own online business at the age of 15. So really, what is she doing? She's an artist. She's an artist, so she does commission-based artwork mostly for the gaming community. She does, and she got a gig to design some Christmas cards for a pretty well-known VR company over the holidays. So she's, I'm just the business manager role as a mother is like another job. Yeah, man, that's wild. Look, so entrepreneurship runs in the family. Yes.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Starting with my mom. My mom was a big entrepreneur. And
tell me about your mom.
Oh, gosh. I think my mom is just amazing. Sheila Kennedy Hardy. She's just a stunningly amazing, beautiful inside and out human being who just could multitask 10 things at once and do them all well, and raised 5 amazing kids, many of whom are entrepreneurs in their own rights, and just a stunningly amazing woman.
So you said she was an entrepreneur. What did she do?
She and my dad had a couple of different PR companies that they started. She also was a partner in a business with her best friend. It was a kitchen store many, many moons ago, decades ago. So, lots of numerous things. She's run organizations, always was very involved, ran everything at our high school at the time. She was still staying at home and ran everything there. And so I come by the running everything naturally. Hereditary.
Yeah, I was going to say it's hereditary. There you go. That's funny. Wow. Okay. So did you then see her growing up as like, I think I'm going to do something like that? Or did you come out? I mean, did you know you were going to law school? And if so, did you know that, I'm going to be, a big law equity partner and that's my path for 30 years? Or in the back of your mind, did you think I'm going to start something? Like I want to be my own boss?
I think I knew I wanted to be a lawyer in probably high school. I had many people who tried to discourage that. My mom was particularly excited about it, though, because I think her dad, who died before I got to know him, had always wanted to have a lawyer in the family. So she was particularly excited about that. I didn't actually decide to go to law school until after I graduated from college and had been out of school for a year. So I actually took a year off in between WashU. I went to Washington University in St. Louis, and before I went to Marquette for law school. And I've always been a sports person. I'm a huge sports girl. I played basketball from 3rd grade through college, through my sophomore year of college. And I love basketball. Like this time of year, you can't get me away from the television when the NCAA tournament is on, except that my team lost in the first round, which was very, very sad.
And your team is?
The University of Kentucky Wildcats.
Yeah, we're going to have to talk about that.
Yeah, well, you can say whatever you want to. You're not getting me off of it.
I'm not going to try to get you off, but I do have 2 degrees from Indiana University.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
How did you become a Wildcat fan?
Well, I grew up 9 minutes from Rupp Arena.
Oh, well, that'll do it. Yeah, that'll get it done. So you keep going west.
Yeah. Well, I left Lexington when I was 18, really to answer your question. Did you always know you wanted to be on your own? I needed to go do my own thing, and I left to go to college. From there, I stayed in St. Louis a lot of the summers or did internships in other areas, and then went to Milwaukee to be at Marquette. Ostensibly because Marquette had a sports law program. It was one of the few in the country at the time, really only 2 or 3 schools, very fledgling. I mean, we're talking 28 years ago now, if we start at the beginning of law school. So now they have a very robust sports law program. Then it was a little bit more fledgling and didn't end up being something that I was a part of, but that was a big factor in my decision to go to Marquette. And, I guess I've just always been the person who says, yeah, I get how everyone else does it, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the right way to do it. And so I'm going to go do it the way that I think is the right way to do it. And I don't mean right versus wrong. I mean, right versus, or better, perhaps, is a better approach. So that's always been my thing. I think I didn't have a set path when I left law school. I was very fortunate. Marquette is an extremely practical legal education. So by the time I graduated from law school, I had worked in-house at a legal department at Northwestern Mutual Life Insurance, to now just Northwestern Mutual. I had clerked for a federal magistrate judge, and written decisions for him. I had my own courtroom as a prosecutor through the clinic for Milwaukee County, and acted in a domestic violence courtroom essentially as the prosecutor for a number of months. And so I had a lot of experience. And then I had also clerked at a large law firm. And so when I left law school was at a good time, and I had a number of job opportunities that were available to me. The law firm was the most intellectually stimulating of those jobs. I did get a lot of crap for, choosing the high paying job, although the difference between it compared to now, I think the difference between the prosecutor job that I was offered was $43,000 a year. And the law firm that I started at was $61,000 a year. So I'm not sure if we can equate that with golden handcuffs, but when you have $100,000 worth of student loans, I'm sure it is something that comes into play. But it was an intellectual decision for me and a great one from that perspective.
I love that. So how then did, let's back up. You mentioned that you raised 3 well-adjusted kids. You have a daughter who's 15. Are the other kids at home?
Yes. So my oldest turns 19 in April. He's actually taking a gap year and is going to be probably at CU next year. He's waiting to hear from one other school. And my daughter turns 16 tomorrow. So she's 15 today, but turns 16 tomorrow on the 22nd. And my youngest is 13. So I have boy, girl, boy.
I love it. Okay, good. So, and we were comparing notes. We're each one of 5, you and me, and you fall where in line?
I'm 4.
You're 4. See, I'm number 1. So I was the practice child.
Yeah.
That's why you're so well-adjusted and successful. And I'm so damaged,
I don't know. Again, I think if you ask my husband if I'm well-adjusted, not traumatic or not teary, I'm not sure he'd give you the same answers that you're receiving.
Well, there's on the record and off the record answers though, right?
Right.
How did you and your husband meet?
We met online before it was cool.
Yeah. So did Lindsay and I.
So way back in 1999. 99. We met back in 99. So we've been married. We had our 20-year anniversary in September. And way before it was cool, before there was even Match.com or anything.
We met online right at it was the tipping point. We still didn't really say that a lot early on. And now it's just normal and everybody does it.
Right.
And you were telling me off camera that if you had a piece of, is it okay if I repeat your marital advice?
Sure.
Because if not, we're just going to edit this whole segment out.
No, that's fine.
But you mentioned to me, because my wife and I, we've got 4 young kids and, you're just in the throes of all that madness entails. And you'd said, looking back now, if there's one thing that you would recommend, it'd be getting away with your spouse just once or twice a year, just the 2 of you to kind of recharge.
Yes. A full weekend away, 1 or 2 nights away from the kids, just a complete, it's hard. 1 night is hard. 2 nights is better, I think, because it gives you a chance to actually settle down. But that's not something we did a great job of. We did date nights, but we didn't have family at all. My husband is from England, so my in-laws are in England, and my family was always in Kentucky, and we lived in Milwaukee the majority of the time that our kids were small. We moved to Colorado in 2012. I think my oldest was 10, so I had 10, 6 or 7 and 3. And so we never really had that opportunity, but eventually I just started hiring people to stay with the kids.
Yeah.
And it made a big difference to do that more regularly now. And now our kids are old enough. In fact, I actually took my husband to Legal Week with me last week in New York, which is the first time ever that he's gone. And it was, I think, a little overwhelming.
Does he realize now that he's married to a rock star?
No. No, I don't. I'm not sure that's true. And also, he would never say that.
Back to that on record versus off the record thing.
Right.
That's too funny. Yeah.
We keep each other humble.
Yeah. I think the dynamic that Lindsay and I found is, when you're dating, it's like the world is your oyster, and you're going to strike it rich and you're going to live this great life and do all these things. And we have not yet struck it rich, but we do have a great life. But I was telling you that, there was a period where I was working, 50 hours a week or more, and getting my MBA at nights. And I started the MBA with 1 kid and ended it with 3. And there was 2.5 years where we didn't even go really on a proper date. Yeah. And then you do, and, whether it's a weekend away or just an evening away, and it's like, you're not just co-parents, and it's like this weight is lifted and you're like, oh, this is why we got married. I like you.
See, and we're at a different stage than you guys are, because our kids are pretty much grown.
Yeah.
And And now we are trying to get back to, wait, we could have interests again. We can do things again. We can spend time together. We can go away for the weekend. What do you mean? That's just,
that is
what happened
nice.
in the last 25 years. Yeah.
So were there hobbies that you put down that you've recently been able to pick back up? Or have you just found like you have all these new interests you didn't know about before?
This summer, my birthday comes up in April, and I had decided for my birthday, I am buying myself a new set of golf clubs, and I will get back into golfing. I miss playing basketball, but my knee, my left, many times operated upon knee, does not like me to play basketball. And so at some point you have to acknowledge that is your fate. Yeah. My husband's a runner, or has, become a runner in the last few years. And so he's training now for some really great races. I'm just starting to get back to what is it that I want to do. But over this next year, after 2 years of not seeing people, I'm planning to travel a lot. Like we want to go back to England and see our in-laws, and I want to go see girlfriends, and I just want to go see the world. We're more about experiences than stuff. Yeah. And so, yeah.
Yeah, we're much the same. So has your husband not seen his family in 2 years?
No.
Oh, wow. And now is that normal though, or is that COVID induced? Being that far apart, I would imagine. Yeah, I'd imagine once every year or two is actually considered pretty good for transoceanic,
Yeah, I mean, he was trying to go every year. But then, of course, with COVID, we really couldn't. And then, of course, there were travel restrictions between the UK and the United States. And, there are some, it's just been hard. Yeah. So we're hoping but I adore my in-laws, which I know a lot of people can't say, but I can. And so, that privileged life that you were talking about, I do feel like we're rich because we just have people and love coming out the wazoo. And that's, I think, what makes you rich. You can have all the money in the world, but it doesn't make any difference whatsoever if you don't have people to share it with. So, well,
yeah. And there's different types of riches, right? I mean, you can have material wealth, but a spiritual dearth, or you can have, you can have material wealth, but no time to spend it because you're working 80 hours a week, killing yourself, right? Trying to crack that next layer. I mean, whatever it is, there's multiple baskets that you got to take care of, right? And make sure that they're full.
Yeah. And I would say this year in particular has given me more perspective from that. And I do tend to work a fair amount because I have several businesses. But it is a balance. And when I'm with my kids, I try to be with my kids, or when I'm with my friends, I'm with my friends. So, yeah.
So we talk about different, these different things that you balance, right? So you've got, your career and your personal relationships, and the one that gets a lot of buzz these days is mental health, right? For good reason. But you're actually fighting a different kind of battle as it relates to health. Would you be open to talking about that at all?
Yeah, sure. In September of last year, I was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer. And so I would say the last 8 months have been a unique kind of mental and physical challenge that I have never before faced. And it's been really hard. But I have to say that, you asked me before if my husband thinks that I'm a rock star. And the answer is that my husband is the one who's a rock star because he has just taking care of me in ways that you should never have to take care of another person over the last 8 months. And so it's been phenomenal. The one thing I would really love to share with your audience is that, you hear a lot that you shouldn't get a colonoscopy until you're 50. And colon cancer is the number 3 killer of people in the United States, number 3 largest cancer in the United States. And doctors for about 5 or 6 years now have recommended that you get a colonoscopy at 45, not at 50. And had I had that advice, I would not be dealing with what I'm dealing with now. So I had to do surgery, and I've been going through chemotherapy since November, hoping to finish that up in April. And so balancing that with the businesses and the kids and everything else has been a mental and physical hurdle of, for me, what has been epic proportions, but I'm a firm believer in what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So that's kind of where we're coming out on this. So, please do take my advice. Please go get your colonoscopy. If it's great and clean, you don't have to come back for 10 years. And the procedure itself is nothing compared to what people make it out to be. It is a no-brainer. I just want to get that message out there. If one person goes and gets a colonoscopy that needs it and prevents that situation, you do not want to go through chemotherapy. I can tell you that firsthand.
Yeah, I got my first colonoscopy at age 19. So five stars, anyway. No, but thank you for sharing that. And my family had our own, as my family of origin, when I was growing up, had our own bout of unexpected health challenges. On my dad's 37th birthday, he out of nowhere had a stroke that almost took his life. Oh. And so it was a few months in hospitals and a few years of rehab. And, he was a practicing surgeon, was never able to operate again.
Wow, at 37?
37, yeah. So, I'm the oldest of 5. I was 10. The youngest was not even 2. Wow. And so I was right. When you're 10 years old, you're old enough to be aware that there's a world outside of you, but you don't fully grasp everything, right? And so it was a very interesting thing that's left an indelible mark on me and how I, how I approach everything from saving for retirement to life insurance to disability to, all these logistical things.
I was just going to say that's really important. And I think for the audience, when you're a young person, you don't think about life insurance, you don't think about disability, you don't think about retirement. You're not thinking about those things because you're so young and everything is ahead of you. Yeah. And we were very lucky because I was at a large law firm and I had a lot of people come to me to talk to us. And we hooked up with a fantastic representative who we got things in place with, very early on. We did all of our estate planning, which wasn't very expensive. We, got life insurance and disability insurance and all of those things. And I have to say that over the last 8 months, one of the real things that has been great is that we haven't been financially devastated by the facts that I've had cancer for 8 months. So it makes a huge difference. So I really do encourage folks to go out there and find someone to help you. If you want some advice, call me or Ryan and you can tell you what we can tell you. But insurance is money you hope never to have to use, but you'll be really glad it's there.
That's right.
If you do.
That's exactly right. So, I know from, I'm in my, I guess, mid 30s technically now.
You lucky dog.
I have the hairline of a guy in his mid 50s. So I know from my own father, from seeing some of my, I had what didn't turn out to be huge health struggles, but some questions and concerns in undergrad. And, from seeing now friends who have dealt with things, I've lost friends to cancer, even at my age. I know that even for somebody who is a natural optimist and a fighter and somebody who has a zest for life like you, there's still, hard days. And when the lights are off and the camera's off and everything, how do you take care of your, mental and spiritual well-being, and how do you push through and find the silver linings of things? Like what's your motivation or motivations to, to just keep putting one foot in front of the other?
Some days can be really hard. They really can be hard. And there are some days when I have felt like, wow, I am honestly not sure how someone who is less mentally strong than I am would make it through this, because this is really difficult. A lot of it is giving yourself time for me, it's been giving myself time to actually feel those emotions and being okay with them. Mm-hmm. And then just kind of moving through them. I have kids and businesses and people who count on me that I choose to be there for. One of the things that has helped me is I've had the opportunity to talk with other folks who have similar struggles they're going through. And people who have helped me, but also people that I've been able to help and encourage and support. You and I were joking kind of off camera that, we don't know what the phenomenon is. You'll have to Google it. But when you're pregnant, everybody you see is pregnant. When you buy a new car, every car you see is the same car. Yeah. It's kind of that same way with cancer, that when you have cancer, it feels like everything comes out of the woodwork that has to deal with cancer. And, I'll read a book and I'm like, really? Can I read a book that isn't about someone who has cancer, please? So it's just putting one foot in front of the other and making small goals and trying to move through them, but also accepting where you are emotionally at that moment and just being okay with that. I've had to accept a lot of limitations over the last 8 months that I've never had in my life before. I think that I probably take multitasking to a whole new level, and at least that's what I've been told. And it's been hard. It's been really hard. And so I think my husband has been great about just saying you have to accept where you are and be okay with it. And my team members, man, you could not ask for a better group of folks. And the industry, all of my friends and colleagues in the industry, wow, what a incredible basis of support. I wasn't going to cry talking about the cancer, but actually talking about how much my friends and family have supported us during this time it's really been incredible. I mean, I'm so grateful to have so many great friends in this industry, as well as professionally outside of the industry, that I just feel really fortunate. So, when I think about riches, that's what I think about.
Yeah. I love that. And yeah, I don't, that was beautiful and profound. And I'm grateful that you are willing to talk about this so publicly. So, just thank you for that.
Absolutely.
So I'll pivot it back to something a little lighter now.
Yeah. Great.
Made reference earlier to eDiscovery Assistant. So this is the piece of software that you developed first in-house and then started commercializing. So it's there's the knock on attorneys that they're not business savvy, right? Which I tend to think is, sure, you can point to examples where that's the case, but there's a hell of a lot of entrepreneurial activity going on in legal today, both with service delivery and with software. So, but still, let's just take the stereotype at face value for the premise here. It's one thing to go from a big law firm to go start your own thing. And then to say, well, that's not it. I can improve this own thing by developing software. And then it's another thing to build a company out of that software product. So knowing that you have some entrepreneurship in your family, that provides a little bit of context for what gave you the gumption and the confidence to do this. But I would love if you wouldn't mind just a couple of minutes, just hearing about, what some of your biggest, highs or I want to say lows, but learning points have been, specifically with eDiscovery Assistant, as you've taken that and turned it into a business, the things that have been surprising or particularly challenging, just since there is so much entrepreneurial activity in the space today. Maybe it would be interesting for some people to hear the behind the curtains look, right? At not just the high points on LinkedIn. Look, right.
Sure. I know, I'm happy to share. I've bootstrapped the company, which means that I personally financed it since starting it in 2012. It started out as an idea. We started out by wireframing it. At the time in 2012, iPads just come out and courtrooms were not wired. There was no Wi-Fi in courtrooms. And so, and what I found is that lawyers didn't know what they were trying to argue when they went into hearings to talk about things. And so we tried to build an application for the iPad that gave you the tools to be able to make arguments in court without needing to be connected. Now, what happened was iPads never caught on. Lawyers never used them. Courtrooms got Wi-Fi. Yep. Websites became responsive design. And so the notion of having built a native iPad app was out that window over there. So that was okay, what are we going to do now? Yeah. We continued to add the content to the back end, and I was using it. We were using it at our firm for our continued client use. And then eventually my husband, who is also a developer and a consultant and a scientist, again, he's the rock star, helped us to build out the back end, really rough structure that we had for inputting the data for the iPad app into more of a front end structure. And then over the years, we've gone through 3 or 4 different iterations of the UI. We just revamped the design for the UI over the last 3 or 4 months. And it's really been it's been a completely iterative process. Surprises along the way. It's a hard question for me to answer because I think what an average person thinks is a surprise, I just go straight through. I'm like, oh, that happened. Okay. How are we going to move on? Okay. What's the next thing? Yeah. People are always the variable factor. And I would say that it takes a long time to figure out how to hire effectively. That's something you certainly don't learn in law school or working as a lawyer. I think that if I had to point to one thing that really has been a huge influencer for me, it was a mentor that I had who unfortunately I lost to cancer during COVID, who for 20 years has been sort of, he was not only my mentor and my partner at the law firm, but he taught me how to trust in what I knew and what I believed. And he would question, things to get me thinking. And it taught me how to teach lawyers. It taught me how to be my own best self and have faith in what I understood and knew, but also to listen effectively. I'm forever grateful to him for the wisdom. There's another individual who I was a former partner of mine also at Quarles and Brady where I worked, who has also been a source of just golden nuggets that I drop into my writing all the time and try to credit him with. But Dan is just somebody who always brought perspective. And so I think that keeping perspective as you're moving on a journey like we've been on with eDiscovery Assistant has always been the key, and trying to see the forest for the trees. The reason that we built eDiscovery Assistant is because I really believe in the power of leveraging ESI effectively to do a better job with litigation. And I don't mean collecting a ton of it and reviewing all of it and spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. What I'm saying is that if you really understand what kinds of ESI exists and what kind of case you're trying to deal with and what the goals of the case are and what the issues are in the case, that you can use ESI to get to answers faster and do it better. And what we're trying to do with eDiscovery Assistant is create a software platform that shoots out information to you that helps you learn to do that.
I love it. I know it was a really broad question, so I appreciate you soldiering through.
No problem.
I've had the idea, because once you set up one podcast, you're like, it's kind of like software, right? Mm-hmm. You develop one piece of software. It's like, oh, what if we did this? What if we did this? What if we did this? I have the same way for podcasts. I have
multiple other ideas for software.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
And so I've thought, man, I would love to do like a how I built this for the eDiscovery and legal tech world.
I love how I built this. That's one of my favorite podcasts.
It's so fantastic. So I don't know what I would call it so that Guy Raz wouldn't sue me, but I'll have to come back on and we're going to walk step by step through, what the design was like. How did you price it? How did you take it to market? I mean, there's so many things that go into building a company that you take for granted when you're on the purchasing side. Yes.
All of those are struggles. And day to day, in fact, we were having a discussion about that this morning. We just revamped our pricing structure. And, now we're like, was that the right thing to do? Do we need to do something different? So it is a constant evolving process. But I love it. Yeah. I absolutely love it. So
it's a drug, isn't it? The highs are so high.
It is. It is a bit of a drug, but so is practicing law in a lot of ways, and I love both. So I split my time depending on the day, as much as possible.
Yeah. So I hope I didn't step on. I always tell guests to have some kind of some kind of soapbox they want to get on, or something when they want to promote, or something they want to constructively vent about, or, just whatever the case may be. So hopefully I didn't step on it by bringing up eDiscovery Assistant.
It's fine.
But the floor is yours.
We talked about this briefly before we got on, and I didn't have anything directly in my head. And I'm going to make it a little bit personal and a little bit professional at the same time, because I will say that the last 8 months of what we have gone through as a family and as an organization, both on the law firm side and on the software side, has given me new perspective, different perspective, more enhanced perspective, maybe is the best way to put it, about life. And this is my biggest takeaway, I think, for folks is, think before you do anything, whatever that is, whether it's responding to an email, whether it's having a conversation with someone. What is it that you want to get out of whatever the interaction is you're going to have? And that has been a way to frame things for me over the last 25 years that has really given me purpose, whether it's planning for going into a meeting or how I'm going to build software or how we're going to price it or anything. It has just been, just think through what you're doing and have your reason for doing it. I do that with my interactions with my kids, with my husband, whatever. It's hard to do, to stop and think. But Dan, who I mentioned before, who was one of my mentors, used to say, you get paid to think. Mm-hmm. People pay you to think. And if you're spending too much time doing, you're not spending enough time thinking. Yeah. And so I think my takeaway or my soapbox is, try to step back from all the doing that you have to do and think about how do you want to get to wherever it is that you want to get to in that day, in that week, in that month, in that life. And is what you're doing moving that forward?
Yeah, I think that's really, really smart advice, specifically the way you phrased, well, I don't want to mess up your words so people can have to rewind. But in business speak, because I'm not a litigator, I'm not an attorney. We call it, you can't just work in the business, you have to work on the business, mm-hmm. right? You got to step back, get out of the day-to-day and just carve out time to think, have some quiet, have paper and pen, go for a bike ride, do whatever you got to do to just be able to let your mind wander and be creative and run through the what ifs and everything else. Because, if all you're doing is clearing the inbox every single day, those strategic things that need to be addressed will never be addressed. You'll just keep kicking the can.
Right. I think for if you're speaking directly to lawyers, but I think this is true of any professional, nobody is going to steer your path. Yeah. You have to steer your own path. You are in charge of your career, of your destiny, of your professional life, of your personal life. And so you have to be in charge of that. No one else is. It doesn't matter whether you have a supervisor or you have a boss or you have a husband or a wife or, whatever you have. They're not in charge of you. You are in charge of yourself. And so you have to take control over what you're doing and make it what you want it to be. And if ultimately what you want it to be doesn't fit with the organization you're in, then change organizations. I mean, I say to my kids all the time, death and taxes. Those are the only two things that are certain. Everything else can be changed.
I can think of no more inspirational note to end the episode on than death and taxes. Kelly, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Ryan. It was a pleasure. It was great to meet you.